from Marion Gibson and from Councillor Bromfield.
Okay.
There are no others, I assume. Okay. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Go on to the minutes of the previous meeting then. Can you confirm that these are an accurate record? Yes?
Yeah, there's a couple of typos in them, but I'm sure Nicola will pick those up as she goes along.
Okay. In terms of matters arising, we had one action, I think, for you, Geraint, which was related to compliance to PSOW recommendation. Is there any further development there?
There is, with that, the annual letter from the PSOW required us to take a report to the Governance and Audit Committee and to the Cabinet to explain the position, and a copy has been sent to you already, Chair.
Okay. Oh, this is, yeah. And as far as I understand from that, there were 4 recommendations, which have all been responded to now.
That is my understanding.
Okay, thank you. That's what we were seeking, I think, anyway. Yeah. All right. And just, I suppose, as a matter arising, there is the question of a replacement member for Councillor Fuchs, but I think that's to be determined at the moment.
It is, Chair, yes.
Okay, thank you. We go on to item 4, which is the Community and Town Council's training update. Brian, could you lead on this, please?
I can indeed, Chair, thank you. So the purpose of this report is to advise you as members of the Standards Committee of the extent and the uptake of Code of Conduct training among members of community and town councils in the Monmouthshire area. So just to give a little bit of background, Code of Conduct training is provided to all county councillors following local government elections. And in addition to that, community and town councillors are also invited to that training. Now, the last session for county councillors took place in May 2022, which was immediately following the last local government election. The next session will take place following the next local government election. In addition to that, the monitoring officer also ensures that new members and co-opted members of this authority who join between elections, that they also receive Code of Conduct training. As for community and town councils, it is a matter for those individual councils to arrange training for their own members. Now, they can do that in one of 2 ways. They can either provide that training internally, or they can go to the services of One Voice Wales, who also provide training for the sector more widely. Now, at a meeting of this committee on the 16th of September, you had a report from the chair following attendance at the National Forum for Chairs of Standards Committees, and it was reported that the Deputy Chief Executive of One Voice Wales attended and gave a presentation relating to support offered by One Voice Wales to councils, and that support included the training offering as well. And following on from that report to this committee, you as members requested that inquiries be made with our town and community councils as to the extent of the Code of Conduct training that is already being received. Now, in item 4 of the report, there is a detailed breakdown of the responses that we've had back from town and community councils, outlining the extent of code of conduct training that has been received by members of those councils. And as you can see, members, the answer paints a mixed picture overall. It would be incorrect to say that the training has been covering all corners of the membership of those councils. Having said that, it is clear that code of conduct training is being taken at town and community council level. The amount of training varies from one council to the next, but you can see for yourselves in that detailed table that the monitoring officer has provided. In addition to that, as I said earlier on, One Voice Wales provide training support, and the monitoring officer has made direct inquiries with that body on that very point. One Voice Wales have confirmed that they offer 2 free training places a year for each town and community council. And that is funded fully by the Welsh Government, so that is at no extra cost to town and community councils. If town and community councils want to receive more training or send more delegates than the minimum or than the 2 that they are entitled to get free training for, then One Voice Wales can cater for that as well, and there are fees applicable for those extras then, as detailed in paragraph 4.2 of the report. Now, one other thing I would note as well, members, is while training on the code of conduct is not compulsory as a matter of law, as a matter of policy, we ensure that our own authorities members all receive code of conduct training. Such a requirement does not apply for town and community councils, in that they are not subject to either a legal requirement to undergo code of conduct training, or we're not, to our knowledge, aware as to whether they impose their own requirements on their members as to code of conduct training. Having said that, it is good policy, it is a good suggestion to encourage the town and community councils and their members to undertake code of conduct training, and we can be there to encourage them in achieving that. So that, in a nutshell, Chair and members, is the report from the monitoring officer on that matter.
Thank you, Graham. Comments, colleagues?
Could somebody remind me how many town and community councils we have?
29.
29. So only 15 responded.
Yeah.
Just over half.
I suspect that there are more responses that are not in the report, in as much as I know that my community council responded, but doesn't appear in here, because I'd read this and I contacted our clerk, who said she had sent the stuff in. We've had the report a while, so I think there are some probably missing.
Okay.
In their defence.
Okay.
Should we not know that?
Well, I mean, we have the report as it is, don't we? It might be interesting to see if there are any others to add.
I can make inquiry. I can make inquiries, Chair, with the monitoring officer on that point.
Okay.
So a return of half, or if Mike's right, and if you've been left off slightly more than half, is not a complete picture that I think would satisfy this committee.
No.
Is it?
No.
No.
No, it's a difficult situation in many ways, as Grant has pointed out. We have a responsibility to promote and encourage training in the code of conduct, but there is no statutory or legal requirement for community or town council to undertake it. So I suppose really the crux of where we are is to try and figure out some way in which you can undertake our responsibilities to promote.
To understand why they're not.
Yeah.
Why, if a whole council, if a whole local council, town council, or community council is not subscribing to it, then why? If there are poor results from particular town and community council, which suggests that at least some councillors subscribe to it but others don't, again, is to understand why. Why, even if it's not, and you're right, Peter and Darren's right, it's not, but it's good practice, isn't it? And it's why would some comply and others not? And why would some councils not subscribe at all? It would be interesting to know why. And then we can perhaps decide where we need to pitch our encouragement and perhaps a little bit more, really.
Okay.
Peter, can we just go back a step before that? The monitoring officer to encourage them to take the training. So how often does the monitoring officer remind each community council that the training is available? Is it yearly? Is it each election? Is it, do we know, Geraint?
I don't have that information to hand, but I can make inquiries.
It would be helpful because, I mean, the retort from community councils may be, well, we're not reminded.
Precisely.
So perhaps we need to start at the beginning and say, well, if it's for the monitoring officers to encourage them to take the training, then how often is that done?
Would it be overkill on the part of this committee to devise a very basic, simple little, not questionnaire, that's putting it too dramatically, but to send out on behalf of this committee to all the community councils explaining why we want to understand, and if at their next meeting they could just do a quick, I don't know, benchmarking exercise as to why people haven't subscribed. Do they not know about it? Do they not have the time? Do they find it difficult to access the training resources? So that we know where to pitch extra encouragement, I guess, really. Is that overkill? Do you think that's overkill?
I don't know.
Well, the recommendations that we're being asked to approve, 2B asks us to instruct the monitoring officer to liaise with the clerks of the councils to encourage the uptake of the training. So in a sense, it's what you just said. If monitoring officer is going to liaise again with the clerks of town and community councils, then perhaps that liaison could involve a slightly more structured paper for them.
Yeah. Why would one council be 100% participating and another perhaps not at all?
I think really, Grant, what we'd be asking for in general is really an update on the table that's in this paper.
Okay.
Which will catch any that have been missed. And really some text accompanying the request to the town and community councils to, in a little more detail as to why, or what their position is in relation to training. I see that Councillor Taylor would like to speak.
And Andrew Blackmore as well.
Councillor Taylor first.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, you asked a question about how often the monitoring officer might remind town and community councils. My recollection would be, and I don't know about now, maybe James has a different approach, but I don't know that they would have been reminded any more frequently than on each election, whole-scale election. And similarly, that's probably the case with the county council. So, for example, in the last the beginning of this term, we were all actually advised that we should take the code of conduct training, or else we would not be able to participate in decision making. And I think that was actually very helpful, because I think you've got everybody undertook it because they essentially theoretically wouldn't be able to take part in a meeting, although there's no, as you say, it's not compulsory, but it's felt to be good practice by the monitoring officer. But I'm not sure that, because like you said, that town and community councillors would be invited to the monitoring officers training and also One Voice Wales. But the other thing is, you will probably find that there will be many councils that didn't elect a whole, you know, a whole council. They will have had vacancies. So that may also be one of the reasons why not all councillors have undertaken it, because, you know, again, it's about that focus and that encouraging of to take up the training, isn't it? Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, apologies. I don't think my camera is working, so I'll need to speak to the IT department. Just really a question for Geraint, just for my understanding.
Sure.
What responsibility do the respective clerks for councils have in terms of encouraging sort of code of conduct training? And then the second part of that question, Geraint, is what engagement do you have with those clerks in order to, well, one, to train them and to understand their responsibilities, please, if any? Thank you.
Sorry, if you could just repeat that second question, the audio went a little bit.
Yeah, apologies. So what engagement do you have with the clerks for council in respect of helping them discharge their responsibility?
Yeah. In terms of the first question, the responsibility of clerks to encourage training, like I said, there is no legal requirement on town and community council members to undergo training on the code of conduct. Whether the individual councils have passed resolutions making it a requirement is a matter for them. And that would be a voluntary decision, a policy decision on their part. I'm not aware of any council that has made such a resolution. In terms of that, the responsibility would simply be a general one as a clerk to encourage training. I think in this context, the expression you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it, springs to mind. So the responsibility is simply that's of encouragement, and there's nothing more to it that can be said than that, really. In terms of the engagement we have with the council, I'm afraid I'll have to come back to you. That's something that I would not be privy to. I'll liaise with James on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, please?
No, other than those that feedback, really.
I think probably then, as an outcome, we probably like the town and community councils to be approached again to get a fuller picture of training. Since we only have, I think we have around half of them at the moment. We'll see if we can encourage some of the remainder to let us know. But I think that approach, which is simply to establish what training had been done, perhaps on this occasion, when we approach them again, there could be some form of words that started to encourage or started to indicate how much we would want to encourage and promote the adoption of training in their members. I don't know whether or not they are fully aware of the importance of training, but it would be a good idea, I think, to remind them. And it would start to fulfill our remit as well to promote and encourage. Would that be possible?
So just to clarify, Chair, I see that you're approving the recommendation, however, subject to the monitoring officer, when liaising with the clerks, to emphasise the importance of training. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly that, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that can be arranged.
Okay, thank you.
So is that the only, just to be clear now, is that all that this committee is asking for in respect of this item?
I think at the moment, yes, because it'd be difficult, I think, to do anything in more detail without a fuller picture of what training requirements and needs are out there. We've got some of the larger councils who haven't made a return. For example,
We need more
I
information.
think we need a little bit more information, yes. And we can come back to it at the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
so you just again, sorry, just to be absolutely clear, you want the monitoring officer also to clarify whether there are any late returns on the
Yes, please. Yeah.
yeah.
For information,
Mhm.
Chair, I'm reading the standing orders for my community council.
Yeah.
And in reference to the chair of the community council, our standing order says the council shall appoint a councillor to chair, provided they have completed at least 3 years competent membership and code of conduct compliance service on the community council. The chair will undertake to complete the chairing skills and the code of conduct training courses.
Okay.
Now, when I was co-opted, I was told that I had to do the code of conduct training,
Mhm.
and I did. I'm not sure where that's written down, but it must be somewhere. I will find out, and
Okay.
I'll check on it.
Okay. I suspect each of those 29 councils
They'll
have their own
different- They will.
approach to
They will.
this. So,
There would not be a legal requirement. If there is a
No.
requirement, it would simply be an internal policy requirement.
okay. Okay, thank you for that. Let's pass on to item 5, which is the outcome of the panel meeting that took place at the, I think it was on 28th August,
Yes.
following a referral from the PSOW. We're now able to discuss this in open session and in detail because the date for appeal against the decision of the panel is now passed. So, Ruth, you were chairing, I think.
Yes.
Would you like
Yes.
to start us off?
Well, I think in the last meeting in September, we did at least confirm with James's approval and guidance the outcome of the panel hearing
Yeah.
and the sanction.
Yeah.
And that in terms of the work for the panel, it wasn't hugely complicated because the Public Service Ombudsman of Wales investigation was so complete and so thorough and so ably presented on the day that the finding of the facts was very straightforward for us, and there was very little ambiguity, was there, Michael, controversy about any of the evidence offered, and very little challenge, well, in fact, no challenge to the evidence offered and gathered in the investigation. So for us, it was a very simple matter of finding of facts, finding that the code of conduct had been breached in the 2 separate areas, and then deciding the sanction, which was censure, and a recommendation that training be undertaken, or refresher training if he had already done it previously.
Okay. Michael, you're a panel member. Do you want to add anything to?
I don't think so. The report, I think, describes very efficiently our work and our decision making.
It's such a, when I say this is an infrequent occurrence, this is the first panel hearing, I think, probably in 3 to 4 years. So I guess that now that we've had one, we'd be looking to see if there were any more general lessons that we could learn as a committee from the panel and from your experience of the panel. Whether or not there's anything that could be improved, any things we need to look out for in the future.
Again, my first time, I've got no comparator really for this context. In my previous experience of conduct panels in the police service, a lot of parallels, and I was hugely impressed by, as I said, the thoroughness of the investigation by the Public Service Ombudsman of Wales.
Indeed.
And I imagine there will be, given that each case rests very much upon different individual or individuals, whether they are the perpetrators or the victims of the circumstances, will vary so much from case to case. I mean, for instance, in Councillor Cowan's case, it appeared like any improvements to the process that could be made were sort of out of our hands, in that he was quite difficult to have consistent communication with. At times it appeared that it was a little bit difficult to engage with him. We were in some doubt, even up to perhaps a few days before, as to whether he was or wasn't going to make written representations and even attend the hearing himself. So I imagine there might be those kind of difficulties, and different ones again in each case, I suppose. In general, and even given that it was my first experience, I felt very confident and comfortable with the whole thing, I have to say.
Good.
Yeah, very comfortable.
I'm glad that the monitoring officer was there, because he certainly led us through the process, and his advice was invaluable.
Okay.
I was, if I'm honest, astonished at the depth of the investigation that the investigating officer had undertaken.
Me too.
The quality of the paperwork, the volume of the paperwork recording their work was remarkable.
Okay.
And they work hard, and I think that should be. I have one question. The panel requires that Councillor Cowan completes training in relation to the member code of conduct. How do we know if he's done it? What do we do if he doesn't? My question to the world.
Right, would there be a follow-up?
I'll liaise with the monitoring officer on that question.
Okay.
Thank you.
I assume that it wouldn't be too difficult to
there's another question. Is there a time limit? I presume, because the panel had the power. We have higher powers of discipline than the ones we've actually exercised. I just wonder what happens next.
That's a process matter, I would have thought, isn't it, for James to advise us on?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's pass then to item 6, receipt of the PSOW's independent review. I don't know if I don't need to really explain the background of this to you, because it's fairly well covered in the papers. Perhaps I could first just invite any general comments you might have on this independent review, and then afterwards we'll pass to the specific consultation issue that's promoted in the paper, to which we, I think, would want to make a response. Are there any general comments?
I suppose I'm relieved that Public Service Ombudsman's office almost had a clean bill of health. I think the allegations that were floating in the press have been put to bed in this inquiry. I think really that's the most important thing in my mind, that we can have some faith in decisions that were made during that difficult time in their history.
Yeah. And the way in which they responded to the independent review generally seems to me to be excellent.
Yeah. I thought the review, the documentation, I mean, the document we've got to tell us how the review was carried out, I thought was very, very thorough. I mean, the examination of so many records and interviews was gave you confidence that it had been done.
And it had to be, you know, it is a proper review of their work, isn't it? Because their work is so important.
Yeah, it certainly gave, confidence that they'd done the review properly, and we could have confidence, as Mike said, about the PSOW's, role in investigating complaints.
Okay, the passing to the specific consultation issue then. This is asking whether or not the PSOW should either continue its current practice of notifying an accused member of a complaint once it has reached the assessment stage of the process, whether it should revert to its previous practice of notifying the accused member immediately on receipt of a complaint. Do you have views on this?
You know, my simple answer is I don't know. I'm really not sure the impact that this has in either direction. I just don't know. I have an open mind.
I've thought about the pros and cons. So
Yeah.
I've looked about the pros and cons and looking at the three key reasons around the recommendation, which is efficiency. So, you know, considering the volume of complaints that are received and the percentage of them that actually never proceed, then there's a lot of administrative and bureaucratic burden on the Ombudsman to send out letters, documents, a summary of the complaint, etc., every time a complaint is received. So that's easy to understand, really. Not to worry the accused unnecessarily if at assessment stage the complaint actually doesn't need to be investigated or go any further. And to avoid undermining the investigation by the accused starting their own investigation, starting their own defence before anything gets going. So they're valid and reasonable, aren't they? But then I think about, okay, in this day and age, what is the real risk of somebody who's been complained about finding out via another means, and let's be honest, either locally gossip, social media, that a complaint has been made? I think there's quite a high risk of that happening anyway. And that's hard to mitigate. That's very hard for the Ombudsman to mitigate. So accepting that in many cases, the person being complained about is going to somehow become aware. Then you have to think about, would it be better then if they had a factual notification rather than a third-hand, possibly embellished account of what the complaint was about, so that if they had the formal notification as soon as possible of what the complaint was about, they are less likely to worry than if they have a third-hand, embellished, inaccurate account via local gossip or even malice or social media, etc. So it's that balance, I think, of if they're going to find out anyway, wouldn't it be better if they were notified formally and in a factual?
Yeah.
And the early notification doesn't need only to be that the bare facts, a complaint has been made, and a brief explanation of what's going to happen next. Perhaps even with strong advice not to start to conduct your own investigation or prepare your defence case, because at the assessment stage, which will follow as soon as possible, this complaint may not be continued anyway. And so some reassurance, but also a little bit of a caveat as well, that be careful not to prejudice your own defence. But there was another reason that I thought, in terms of fairness, is if the accused is ignorant of the complaint until the assessment stage, and that could be a week or 2 weeks, or perhaps even a little bit more if they're really, really busy, and they are at risk of coming into contact with the person who's complained about them in the meantime, and only one of those people knows that the complaint has been made, does that put the accused, who is innocent until a later stage, in perhaps a bit of an unfair situation, really, where they may further annoy the person who's complained about them or make their situation a little bit worse without even knowing that that's a situation they ought perhaps to be just a little bit careful and cautious about. So I was thinking about that as well. And given that the statistics suggest that a lot of these complaints fall away at assessment stage, no doubt because they are without basis, or even, let's say, sometimes mischievous. You know, it's a tough situation, isn't it, for councillors to be in, where they're in a community where there's some negative feeling and opinion and even a formal complaint about them, and they're not aware of what they're walking in those days and weeks.
Good.
And I think we'd have to expect that a lot of councillors would just be grateful to know that and go no further in terms of trying to quash the complaint or cover their tracks. So it's a fairness thing. And then we come back to the efficiency. If I was the public service ombudsman, I would think, oh my God, hundreds of letters to send out and accompanying documents when 20% of them will
15%.
Only 15% will ever go beyond the assessment stage into something else. But that was my rationale when I thought about it, really.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. So as someone who's had spurious complaints made against them, I think it's really important that you know. It's also the other thing is when a complaint is made, you have to keep it confidential or else you're in breach of the code as well. So I think the other issue is that there are very few people who actually understand the code of conduct, and actually the bar is really high. So in my experience, certainly, you know, complaints that we've seen come in, the bar's pretty high in terms of what you must have done, or, you know, for there to be considered A, to be a breach, and B, for that breach to be as significant as to attract a sanction. As you mentioned, now there hasn't been a panel hearing for quite some time, so people do make complaints, as is their right, of course, but quite frankly, a lot of them seem to be, as you mentioned, you know, not taken any further. And also it can tell another story as well. I know that, you know, at one time there was so many complaints made in a given, you know, member on member in a given community council. Actually, the Ombudsman started to look at the way that they dealt with them, particularly member on member complaints. And that's where, you know, I guess we got more focus on the local resolution protocol now. But from my point of view, I would be saying that I think a member should know if there's been a complaint made against them and by whom that is, because it is a very, very, very deeply unpleasant thing to happen. But I think it's even worse if you don't even know about it. Personally, that's my personal view. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
And sorry, Chair, I should have apologised. I haven't got a great signal, and when I put my camera on earlier, it just makes me drop out. So I just thought it was better to stay off camera. So I do apologise.
Okay. That's fine, thank you. Any other comments?
I mean, I don't disagree with anything that Francis or Ruth have said. I think in terms of, you know, fairness and open justice, which, you know, our society should be about, people should be aware that there is a complaint against them. I have sympathy with the Ombudsman, because if, you know, 85% of the complaints they receive don't get past assessment phase and they're having to deal with people sending in their representations of why I didn't do it, for example, then that's just huge administrative burden. I mean, there may be a marker to say, as Ruth has said, you know, there is a factual evidence, you know, factual points that you've had a complaint against you, and just adding the line, please don't send any representations until the assessment phase is over, because we can't look at them. And then it may stop. I doubt it will stop it completely, but it may slow down the, you know, representations being sent in by the accused, which would be a natural response. All of us would want to defend our position quickly. But if that were made clearer, then it, and also for the person who's being complained against to actually know a timescale of the assessment phase. I mean, you know, if it's 2 weeks, then 2 weeks, because then you know how long you've got to wait. But if it's with the assessment, we won't tell you until the assessment phase ended. Well, how long could that be? And that, as Councillor Taylor has pointed out, it's hugely stressful and very worrying when that happens. You know, you have a complaint, and we all should know how long we have to wait.
I expect they've got performance indicators.
Yes, they do have. They have key performance indicators, but I think that it says 6 weeks. But how often does it go over that 6 weeks? That's the.
Okay. The weight of what I'm hearing is that we would, if we make a response to this consultation, support PSOW reverting to its original process, which is to inform subject of a complaint as the complaint is made, rather than wait until the assessment stage. I think we need to give particular weight to Councillor Taylor's personal experience. That's telling in terms of the whole of this process. I don't know. It just strikes me as an issue about natural justice as well. That there just seems to be something uncomfortable about a person about whom a complaint has been made having to wait whilst others know, and then perhaps finding out in an unofficial way, which I don't think would be a pleasant experience at all. So, you happy if our the recommendation is we instruct the monitoring officer to prepare and submit a response? Are you happy if that response reflects the general nature of our discussion, that we would support the reversion to the original process? But I think we might add that in doing so, the PSOW might want to make a particular point about no representations following knowledge of the complaint. The representation shouldn't be made at that early stage. Geraint, that's you'll pass it on to James, no doubt. Yeah,
I will, Chair. I've made a note of a summary of the concerns that have been raised.
Okay, thank you. Item 7 is for us to receive the annual report of the adjudication panel for Wales. There's no specific issue here for us to discuss. It's simply to receive and note the work of the APW. But be happy for any comments or queries that you have.
They work hard, don't they?
Interesting.
That irony.
Yes.
Yeah.
They work hard.
I must admit, I was a little surprised by the number of cases that are dealt with on an annual basis. I mean, it's very good that it's low in percent, but and of course it's not their action, is it? It's the PSOW referring things to them. If they don't have referrals, then they can't take any action. But it does seem very light.
But interesting to understand the process. Really, really interesting, and certainly helped me with the wider context of the whole public complaints.
And I think the example, well, they're not examples, are they? They give a case summary for every case they've dealt with in the past year. Are instructive, interesting.
Yeah.
They make
real glimpse.
Sorry?
A real glimpse into.
Yes, yeah.
And interesting that the appeals they've received from as a result of councils being sanctioned are only 2. So again, perhaps indicating that PSOW is getting their adjudication correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, they're very. Well, I suppose we ought to be congratulating them for being underemployed, but it does seem a very low, low numbers.
Okay, fine, thank you. Let's pass on to item 8, which I need to begin this item with an apology, really. You did receive a report from me at the last meeting, which is just my notes on the meeting of the National Forum for the Chairs of Standards Committees that I attended, my first attendance at such a meeting. Having then received the formal notes for the forum, I thought I would bring them to you because they enable you to see a complete record of what was discussed, and also the slides from the presentation I think are useful too in many ways. But I also wanted to correct a misunderstanding on my part regarding the status of the notes and the destination of the notes. I did understand after my first meeting that the notes should go to individual members of standards committees, but not be received in full by the committee itself. I'm not quite sure how I came to that understanding, but it was incorrect. In actual fact, the notes can be received by standards committees as long as appropriate redaction is made. Specific names, for example, are used in the discussion. So you will be receiving from now on the full notes from the National Forum, appropriately redacted if necessary. And I do apologise for misleading you at the last meeting. If there are any comments on the meeting now that you have the full notes, I'll be happy to receive them.
Mandatory.
Yeah. Okay. Right. There's no paper for item 9, but if I could just introduce it. Dates and times of future meetings. I had a very useful meeting with the council leader, Councillor Brocklesby, a few weeks ago, and she raised with me the issue of the timing of meetings of the council and the council subcommittees, and whether the current schedule was sympathetic enough to those with work and family and other commitments. And she asked me to raise with you as a committee the issue as to whether or not we would be supportive of a change in the times, particularly the timing of future meetings rather than the dates. And in particular, whether or not morning meetings might usefully become afternoon meetings to help those people with, as I say, with school, family, and other commitments. I said I would raise it with you. I think it's being raised with every council subcommittee and the council itself at the moment. So I'd be happy to have your reflections and comments on that.
I would prefer not to go to afternoons because I have other work commitments, so I give up a period of time, and it's easy to give up a period of time in the morning than, stop my work to come and attend a meeting in the afternoon. So I have no objection to them. I mean, 10 o'clock seems a reasonable time for people to have got children off to school, caring responsibilities, personally. But I mean, I would accommodate it, but it would actually compound my challenges, not improve them in terms of my own work-life balance and trying to organise my other employment activities.
I don't understand how moving this meeting to the afternoon would resolve care responsibilities anywhere. Deep down, schools are open in the afternoons as much as they are in the mornings. And as an ex-manager of a school, shall we say, I'd rather people were able to get to school at the end of the day to pick up their children than but it doesn't impact on me personally. I suppose, what about the professionals in the room? We have to fit with their timetable as well, as much as fitting, and the councillors. I'm not in a position to comment.
Councillor Taylor.
I was just going to say that after 12 years as county councillor, it doesn't really matter what time a meeting is. It's always equally difficult for many people because I work, I have caring responsibilities. I also care for my mum. I have children. It doesn't really make much difference. I would say though, in the afternoon is probably the very, very worst time. But yeah. For me, I much prefer to start earlier in the morning. But I just was going to say that it's a shame that Councillor Bromfield isn't here because I know that her children are quite young. I'd be interested to hear from her, and she also runs her own business. But each committee is supposed to take these matters just into consideration. And I don't know if it's possible, Chair, actually just to hear from her, or maybe ask the monitoring officer to seek a view from Councillor Bromfield. But I agree. I mean, in respect of council officers, I mean, that's just one of the sort of issues with is working for a council. You know, that the attitude of the chief executive has always been, well, we'll just have to accommodate meetings. But yeah, I take your point about other professionals, and I think that every time can be helpful or not helpful. Really, it just depends on people's circumstances. You just can't please everybody, so the majority view is probably most helpful. But as I said, I would be interested to hear from Councillor Bromfield. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Geraint.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to confirm for the members, Councillor Bromfield has submitted comments regarding date and time of next meetings of this committee. She hasn't mentioned anything in terms of the time of day. However, she has made a request that the last quarterly meeting of this committee in 2025 is held in the first week of December rather than any other week of that month.
Yes,
That would,
Yeah.
that would.
that would be a sensible. That would be a sensible move. I understand that.
I mean, if she has small children, then she will be expected to be attending lots of school activities. So I'm sure that will be perfectly reasonable to request.
Also, sorry, Chair, I was just going to say Councillor Bromfield is a butcher, so that's another reason why furthering
that'll be why
it'll
be very busy then.
I believe that's the main consideration here rather than childcare responsibilities.
Okay.
That would seem very reasonable.
Ruth, do you have a?
No, I'm neutral because I can do both.
Mr. Blackmore, does he have a view?
Andrew, would you like to?
No, I'm fairly relaxed. I don't have many sort of other commitments, so I'm quite flexible in terms of my availability. Thank you.
Okay. In that case, I don't detect any strong expressed support for changing the timing of the meetings from morning to afternoon. We would ask Geraint to seek the views of Councillor Bromfield on timings. But I'm suggesting that we accept her request that this December meeting next year is held in the first week rather than the third week of the month. Would that be agreeable?
Yeah, I think that's very sensible.
Okay.
Did we have representations from any other committee member, the ones that are absent, Geraint?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay. Okay, we're okay with that. Good, thank you very much. I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you very much for your attendance today. Our next meeting is on a date that I've forgotten to note on my papers, so I can't tell you.
Geraint can tell us.
In March, I think, isn't it?
Bear with me.
I've got it on my screen. 17th of March.
Okay.
St. Patrick's Day.
There you go.
Okay, I will see you then.
Chair, are you today intending to set other dates for 2025 or just the next meeting date?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry, Chair, are you intending to fix dates for the whole of 2025 or just the next meeting?
We could fix them for the whole of the year. I would assume that they were just going to fall close to where they are this year or on the equivalent date next year. Apart from December, though.
Okay.
I'll make a change for December.
Yeah.
The website calendar has the 16th of June as a provisional date.
Yeah.
After March, and it stops there.
Yeah, we'll take the diary to council in January. And
all right.
We'll be posted there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy Christmas, everybody.
Oh, I should have said happy holidays.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you, Geraint.
Thank you. Thanks.
Done.
Time efficient there.